When I started my position in 2013, walking through the galleries, I got the impression that not only the visitors were not supposed to touch the paintings, but neither were the curators. It felt like these paintings have been there forever and do not dare to change their position, because visitors were expected to come back to their Rembrandt, to their Rubens, at the exact position where they have been forever. But what is forever, of course? So when we had the renovation in the years starting in 2014, for a number of years, I had the chance to reinstall the Dutch cabinets, at least. And I was supposed to hang back the paintings as they were, of course. I didn't. And this was the first challenge, but it was a good experience also to have a new view onto the collection and counterparts hanging next to each other. And then, a few years ago, the younger generation of curators, were challenging the rule not to change the collection. Because when I changed it in the Dutch galleries, of course, I stayed within my field, in my collection. But we were actually looking at our paintings and, taking a look at other paintings in other collectors' fields. So this was a lot more challenging. And before going to explain to you what we did, I would like to go back into the history and also of presenting the art at the Alto Pinakothek. So the Alto Pinakothek was opened in 1836. And the collection comprises of about 8,000 old master paintings from the 14th until the 18th century, with more than 700 paintings on display currently. And those who have been to the Alto Pinakothek of you know that it starts in room number 1 with the collection of early Netherlandish and German masters of the 16th century, leading up to the 18th century French painting at room number 11 at the other end of the building. So you walk basically along the art of, the history of painting. The idea of grouping collections of old master galleries and museums in this way took shape well over 200 years ago. As early as the second half of the 18th century, galleries and museums were increasingly arranged according to art historical classifications, instead of ordering the works based on their decorative or representational criteria. And I was very happy to see the Ebert painting of the Louvre, because actually King Ludwig I of Bavaria, when he designed with his architect the Alto Pinakothek, went 33 times to Paris before the opening to look at the installment in the Louvre, which was groundbreaking, of course, in comparison to castles. As a result, museum visitors were confronted first and foremost by an educational experience, an instructive stroll through the history of European painting. In the 19th century, the model of arranging paintings by chronology, geography, and style advanced to become the standard. It shaped milestones of museum architecture and schooled generations of visitors. While the times when museums presented themselves as temples of elite artistic cultivation may be long gone, the exhibition layouts have proved to be enduring. Arranging rows of paintings by their epoch, school, or artistic landscape is still an accepted standard for cultural travelers today. Familiar to the world over, they proceed from the medieval to the Rococo era, assigning every masterpiece its rightful position in art history along the way. However, this arrangement often disregards the numerous aesthetic and didactic innovations, and occasionally even revolutionary changes that have taken place in museum presentation. As can be observed, the past decades have seen a rethinking of classical principles in many places. resulting in partial or indeed full-scale rearrangements of their collections, generally carried out in mindfulness of the tradition. This change is long overdue, as museums in their capacity as institutions are called upon to respond to social change by adjusting and aligning their mission and their methods. The current rehang of the collection involved an in-depth process of conceptual development, followed by the relocation of around 200 paintings at the Alte Pinakothek. In the rooms of the upper gallery, the paintings now confront each other in unaccustomed new context, in dialogue-based arrangements, and themed groups that invite visitors to re-explore the familiar masterpieces. Dürer's self-portrait is now placed amongst equally sized contemporary portraits, emphasizing the uniqueness of this masterpiece. Numerous major works that were previously physically separated have now become neighbors, transcending the boundaries of styles and epochs, like the prominent landscapes of Altdorfer and Memling. Their encounters reveal unsuspected parallels, direct viewers' attention to rarely addressed thematic connections and characteristic features. They open up fresh perspectives on the works and their creators, on their contents and forms of portrayal, and on the contextual connections of their origins. For the first time in the history of the Alte Pinakothek, the traditional order of the gallery following chronological and geographical criteria has been dropped for a large part of the tour route. When planning the rehang, we involved not only our curatorial departments, but also our colleagues from education as well as communication, in debating central questions such as how can we meet the expectations and desires of our diverse local public on the one hand, and our numerous international visitors on the other. So what new context could allow our artworks to unfold their quality and impact in new, sometimes surprising ways, leaving familiar habits behind, and to the full extending far beyond their significance as art historical testimonies? And how can we give visibility to even our most recent collection and research work? For a long time, my colleague responsible for French and Spanish painting and I envisioned to present the genre scenes by Murillo side by side with Dutch still lifes. Jordaan's in this context is meaningful counterpart to the Dutch Caravaggisti in the same room. Many of these new groupings are linked into themed ensembles devoted to the main genres: history painting, portraiture, landscape, still life, but also highlighting compositional or narrative structures and prominent subjects, such as interactions between interior and exterior, monumental robe figures or chiaroscuro effects, images and depictions of the life of the Virgin Mary, female nudes. In addition, individual focus is occasionally turned on features of coloration and brushwork, or as seen here, violence and suffering. Sorry, this was another. Okay. Far from the established systematic approach of schools of European painting, this display shows that interchange between artists and their art was never restricted by their countries of origin or political landscapes. And even if these artists and their works have little or no connection in art historical terms, their dialogue proves to be fruitful, as the new juxtapositions show, like Titian and Gossard, El Greco and Grunewald, Ferdinand Bohl's typical Dutch group portrait amongst Flemish portraiture, or Philip de Koning's panoramic landscapes in juxtaposition with spacious historical landscapes by Claude Lorrain. Or, in the Dutch galleries, the Passion series by Rembrandt with a complementing depiction of Christ on the cross by Rubens, together with Tintoretto, showing a similar but at the same time very different way of illuminating and spotlighting the picture stage of the crucifixion. Some general remarks among colleagues. The rehang of the collection is designed as a provisional and dynamic process. It takes into consideration temporary closure of rooms previously devoted to the Cologne and Spanish schools, which now serve as interim locations for restoration studios during the renovation of the Neue Pinakothek just across the street. Some groups have remained in place despite the extensive changes, such as the large-scale Rubens ensembles at the center of the gallery. And we are currently reviewing the north cabinets, where visitors may expect some intriguing encounters in the next future. The unbroken relevance of the themes and imagery of the old masters comes to the fore in the last room of the exhibition. This room has been installed and furnished as a study gallery for art education, allowing workshops and learning events to be held in the middle of the gallery for the first time. This gallery features a selection of paintings hung very densely and low to the ground, making them particularly accessible to families and children. Under the heading Discovering the Present in the Past, the gallery directs our attention to life in earlier times, to people's desires and interests, and to their role in society and the family, as well as to travel and perceptions of nature. Especially on weekends, visitors can enjoy short guided tours or swap ideas with museum guides, or take part and join in family workshops. In addition to educational programs, we designed a new web app as a digital companion through the museum. You can use it on site during a visit, as well as from home, giving you access to tours even before or after your visit. There are currently 6 tours for adults, 4 tours for children, and 1 tour in easy language. But the possibilities go much further. Using your own area with saved works, you can create completely individualized tours and also explore the collection in new depth thanks to the tagging of the paintings. Please come to Munich and try it for yourself.